This is Mira Business FM. It is the morning drive. My name's Tim Elliot. Good morning. You can join us very easily. Get in touch with the show. info@mira.fm is the email address. And then to WhatsApp, no need to remember any pesky numbers. Just type in whatsapp.mira.fm into your browser and that should bring up your WhatsApp. Assuming, of course, it's loaded on your laptop or whatever device you're using. Very simple. Just do that and you can contact the show directly. Now, coming up on the program, UAE AI pioneers. Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence, or MBZUAI, has developed a groundbreaking system, a bit like the DataWise platform, that can anticipate future trends, consumer behavior, and business outcomes. It's not just a research project, it's a tool hopefully ready to redefine how every business in the Gulf makes decisions. So what does this next-gen predictive power mean for your portfolio? Jon Carvill is the VP of Marketing and Communications at MBZUAI and is with us over Zoom from the capital. Jon, it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So let's start with some layman's term stuff, if that's okay. How this predictive AI technology, and specifically platforms like DataWise, moves beyond traditional analytics to actually anticipate future events. In other words, what does it do and how does it do what it does?
Well, that's a great place to start. So I think, the AI that we're using today is in the form of a large language model, the ones that we use, whether it's a ChatGPT or a Google's Gemini or an Anthropic's Claude, we increasingly rely on them day to day. But we see them as technology that has a lot of utility for things that we need now, but where we're going long term, we see the need for a much different type of AI for where the future is going to go. And we created something called a world model. Our world model is named PAN. And essentially what a world model is meant to do, it's meant to give you the tools to be able to simulate and predict the future. It gives you the ability to do things like thought experiments of potential outcomes to situations. So I'll give you a great example. So if you look at an area like, robotics. Robotics has done some incredible things, lots of expanses. But, we still don't have a home automation robot that could fold your laundry or load the dishwasher and load it for you. Really simple tasks, but they require an intense amount of training to do. So with our model, you could go ahead and you could upload an image of a robotic hand working with a set of dishes, and then you could prompt in every potential eventual outcome of how it would load and unload different styles of dishes, different types of dishwashers. And you create a data set that all of a sudden that robot could be trained on doing in a fraction of the time that you would have to do it manually. So it has huge potential in areas like this that require a lot of data intensive work to do things that really we haven't accomplished yet at scale. This is a new way of approaching it and doing it. And it can apply to something as utility as a robot that's doing home automation, or something a little further out there. You could be looking at, modeling how you'd want to look at a lunar landing and all the potential outcomes for that by uploading an image, creating essentially what amounts to a research tree of different options. And just through a simple prompt, looking at all the different eventualities and outcomes you could achieve from that. So it's a little bit out there. It's research today. We see this as the next couple of years kind of becoming the next big thing. And we see a lot of other organizations kind of coalescing behind it. But we're really at the frontier of it here in Abu Dhabi, which is a pretty awesome place to be.
It's a very exciting development. It really is, particularly as it's here in the UAE. I mean, it seems to me that this is us kind of hurtling towards that, slightly more human, more thinking, more reasoning AI potentially.
100%. So you're seeing now, this is the next expanse where, you take the language capabilities in a large language model, you bring it forward into these technologies. But now you give it the ability to understand the physics of a situation, to interact within an environment. So you see some of these really cool video generators out there and these unbelievable videos they create. But they create these great, what I would call media assets, but it really doesn't know much about the world. Here you can actually create something and you can interact and explore within it. Think of a world where you could upload an image of a Van Gogh painting and all of a sudden had an interactive world that you could explore that's of that same ilk of that painting. Like, it's just what you can do is it's profoundly different, and you almost have to get in front of it to really understand the potential, because the use cases for this, they just go on and on and on. I mean, even for something as simple as a sporting event, like we have the World Cup coming up. You could look at different potential defensive formations and strategies if you were a coach or an athlete, and play out every scenario in a game and use that for training purposes. I mean, that was a scenario I didn't even think about till about a month ago, and one of our researchers showed that to me, and I was like, wow. So that's really, if you look at the potential for these, you can't really find an industry that couldn't benefit in some capacity from this. And as these become increasingly commercialized over the coming years, we're going to see just unbelievable amount of options out there for this.
The potential really is. We hear this phrase all the time, don't we? In businesses. Oh, it's limitless. The potential is limitless. But in this case, it really is. It's kind of hard to ask you to list scenarios because there are so many. The World Cup one
So many.
works really well. I mean, we've all seen, I don't know, the Sasquatch, the orangutan stuff on social media. Very funny, very amusing, and you know how realistic that is. Can I ask you though, Jon? One of the things with AI is the training of AI and the data behind the AI. What kind of data is the model that you're working on trained on, and how quickly can they generate, you know, really meaningful, actionable stuff, insights for a business operating in a market like here in the Emirates?
Yeah, I would tell you that you're using a visual data set behind something like a world model because you want to look at images and videos essentially as a starting point for that. And there's a lot of that publicly available out there to train from.
Sure, sure.
But then if you look at that actionability to get to that kind of commercial benefit, that's still going to a little ways away. If you look at what we're doing at the university, we see ourselves as the research hub essentially for the Emirate. And we want to create the technology here that, partners like G42 on our side could then take and look at how they want to commercially implement or commercialize in a way that they could turn into something really special that could scale to the world. What we also try and do is we share as much as humanly possible about what we're building and how we've built it. We want people to know we've done it the right way with the right safeguards in place, and we're transparent about how the systems work. But then we also want it to be as accessible because the reality is, if you look at it today, a lot of the AI created is largely done on the West Coast of the United States with a pocket of 3 or 4 organizations. We try and operate in a much more open fashion, and we think there's a huge opportunity to make technology like this and more accessible to the rest of the world. And the more you share, the more others then can build on top of your work and move your work further forward faster.
Let's move forward a little bit from the research that you're doing into the moment to the so-called real world, whatever that is these days. But for anybody listening who may be in business, where would you hope to see, is maybe a better way to phrase it, this technology having the most kind of immediate impact, maybe disruptive impact in the MENA region? I don't know, logistics or finance, energy?
I see huge potential. So if you look at autonomous systems in areas like robotics is definitely one of them, autonomous vehicles.
Hmm.
So those vehicles could be adopted. Like I just was at ADIPEC a couple of weeks ago. We were showing different use cases for AI to essentially reduce risk, improve the efficiency of maintenance around, oil and energy. There's ways you could take this technology with robotics and train it to do things that would keep humans ultimately safer and hopefully deliver you a greater level of efficiency overall for using industrial robotics in that environment and scenario. So we have a number of things that we've modeled out, even something like autonomous vehicles. Like, I mean, if you've been to the Bay Area or at different parts, even here, we're now having seen autonomous taxis, and we have Waymos in the U.S. that are driving around. The reality is those take a huge amount of effort to train. You can train a human driver in less than 20 hours. A robot to do it autonomously for a vehicle takes a lot longer. There's a reason we haven't had that fully rolled out across the world at this point. Technologies like this are going to make our ability to do that even faster. So if you think of the future of areas like, drone delivery, things along those lines, the potential for these AI systems to allow us to do it more efficiently, safer, and faster is very, very high.
We need to mention trust. It's a major challenge for AI adoption, I think. We're all kind of used to, Google offering AI as a first kind of search point. But how does the concept of explainability in your research help people in business, or just you and I really, feel confident in basing potentially very important, maybe even critical decisions on AI predictions?
I think from an ethos perspective, one of the things that we do is we have a commitment to doing things openly. So that openness translates into a couple of different things. In many cases, we do a full open source technology. So we release the technology for anybody to use and build on top of. So if you want to build your own fine-tuned particular AI implementation for your business, we give you the tools to do that. But then we also release in-depth technical papers that explain how it works. And not everybody does that. A lot of the larger companies have kind of shied away from keeping that detail. We believe that transparency, there's no mystery, no mystery behind what's inside the black box. You understand how it works, why it works, and why it's doing the things it's doing. So we think the education part is critical to disarming some of the fears around this and having people ultimately collaborate to make it even safer. The more people that are working on trust and safety, and also the more people that are finding your vulnerabilities, we see that as a net positive. But I think there's two different arguments on there, and we'll see which one prevails in the end. But we definitely fall more on the open side.
It's a good thing to hear, I think. And aside from the excitement that this offers, there's another important aspect here, isn't there? That this is a move that sets down a marker that here in the UAE, we're beginning to see less reliance on imported technology. This is, in many ways, a leading position, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I'll give you a little bit more color on top of that. So I think about a month and a half ago, we released a model called K2 Think. It was an advanced AI reasoning model, fully open sourced. It was the first time that had been done out of the UAE, and it really went shot for shot with the best models in the world that were open source. So we kind of set the bar at that point that we are here, and we're going to deliver very legitimate frontier leading edge technology. This is taking it one step further. This is basically showing you now we're planning years out to be at the vanguard of the next AI transition. But at the same time, I mean, to give you some perspective, we have more models coming out of the university for leading edge Arabic LLMs. We have another fully sovereign AI LLM coming probably before the end of the year. And these are all intent to compete at the highest order against the biggest players in the world, all emanating here out of the UAE, which is a really cool place to be doing this because we're bringing in the talent from all across the world, from the West, from the East, from here in the country to work on these collectively together. And we put labs essentially in different parts of the world so we have the best talent collaborating on it. So I think you're going to see a pretty significant change as we evolve further forward in the industry, where a lot of the technology outside of the US that's at that frontier and leading edge is going to be coming from here. And that's a pretty awesome place to be here at the beginning of that transition happening.
Well, it really is, isn't it? And I guess without wanting to be, cheesy or overly sentimental here, what we have in the UAE is a fairly unique position. You mentioned there most AI models tend to come from the west coast of the United States at the moment. We are clearly in a very different place geographically, but also, I guess, culturally as well, sociologically as well. We've got the 180 nationalities here, potentially people wanting to come to the UAE to create a new life. It's a very attractive destination. That's got to be, in my way of thinking, a good thing for the future of AI, surely.
I think so. And I think you also have a government that's thinking ahead of the curve, right? It looked at putting a UAE minister in place many years before other public institutions were even contemplating this.
Mm.
So you've got ahead of the curve. You've invested ahead of the curve. You're investing in infrastructure. You're investing in education. I'll give you an interesting stat. Like we just had our commencement this past May. 88% of the graduates are going to stay in the UAE to practice AI. Of our graduates for master's and doctoral level, they have the opportunity to go anywhere in the world. They're choosing to stay here either to further their education or to work within industry here because the opportunities here in their minds outweigh the opportunities they would get going somewhere in Western Europe or on the west coast of the US. It's a pretty awesome place to be able to see that begin to really germinate and take hold. And I think if we look at the longer term horizon of that, with more investment going in, more compute going to be made available here locally, and a commitment to using AI as far as public systems, making them more modern and efficient, you're going to see this area of the world be able to move fast and at a pace that I don't think any other region is going to be able to keep up with.
Well, that's certainly been the trajectory so far. What's the long-term vision for this technology? Are we going to see a future, or how far are we from a future where every government department, major corporation in the UAE has its own predictive AI platform, integrated into its daily, workday, its operations?
I think it's already happening. I think the difference is it's happening in incremental steps. I think the big thing with AI is you don't want to go from 0 to 10. You kind of want to go from 0 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't want to, obviously you want to be agile and you want to be able to iterate and move quickly and learn from what you're seeing. But it's something where you want to get people conditioned to it, I think, incrementally, so you don't have that hockey stick per se. You have a nice slope that's going upwards. And I feel like that's happening here. I mean, if I look at even the tools that I use day to day, increasingly becoming smarter, more efficient, faster, quicker access to the information that I need. I mean, and we're working with other public sector entities as well to help them build really intelligent AI agents to make your process better as you're looking to do things like, book flights or your internal systems for travel or things of that nature. So there's a lot of public-private partnership, and that's one of the unique things about the UAE as well, is the proximity of public-private partnership is really close. I don't think you see that in a market like the US or Canada, where I've spent my career prior to coming here.
Can I ask you, just for a very quick kind of, not really a personal opinion, just a rumination, if you like. What do you say to the people that, the doomsayers that surround AI? Oh, it's going to take all our jobs. It's going to take over the world. We'll never be able to turn it off. What's your response to people that take that view?
Well, I guess my response is, you always want to be empathetic to why they're thinking that way, and you want to try and understand them better. I think if you, the minute you kind of dismiss them, I think that's a mistake. I think you have to understand why they think that way, and you have to look at their day-to-day life. What kind of utility would really make their life better? And in many instances, when I just have conversations with these people, I can find something that they don't even know they already have that would improve materially something that they really don't like doing or that they want to do better, and it's right there to help them do that. So there's an education factor, number one. But number two, on jobs, I think AI is going to create a number of jobs. Well, it's definitely going to change the topology of the workforce. I think you're going to create a bunch of new jobs around AI as well. What you have to be willing to do is not be afraid to explore, experiment, to try new AI technologies. I mean, even me personally, 4 or 5 years ago, I was working at Meta and I was leading communications and marketing for AI. And on my side with that, I didn't use it all that much. I think I had this reluctance that if I want to own my content, I want to have this, really strong view that it has to come from me directly or it's not going to have that same authenticity. And then I was like, okay, I really need to get more personal experience with this. And I learned how to use it in a way that I hadn't before and explored and experimented. And I found that balance to maintaining your authenticity with having that technology that can improve your life and make your life better on a day-to-day basis. We all have to do it in our own kind of way, in our own sort of pace. But I would encourage everyone, exploration and experimentation is key. The minute we become kind of afraid of this technology and we shut down around it, I think that's when it becomes increasingly challenging for us to move forward with it.
It's really is true, isn't it? You see this a lot online at the moment. Embrace AI, and I guess if you embrace something, you can take control of it. You can get on top of it, and it's good advice. We've got a question for you, Jon. I want to ask you directly about the innovation in terms of predicting the future. No name on this, but I'm curious, says this person, can this really predict the future like in sci-fi movies?
I don't want to say you're going to have we're not building the Back to the Future equivalent here. I think it allows you it allows you to do what we call thought experiments, simulate all these different potential outcomes and achieve your goal in a much faster rate because you're ultimately going to have AI and data that is much more specialized and targeted to what you want to accomplish. So I think you'll have a more efficient, faster way to get to that outcome. Is it going to simulate and predict the future for you? And that, in sci-fi terms, no, that's not the intent of this model. It's going to simulate and predict the future outcomes of things that let you get to a particular objective faster.
Just a quick question on the things that you're working on there at Mohammed bin Zayed University of AI, which is a mouthful, but it's a hell of a place to mention on this show. What can you, without having to shoot me, Jon, what can you tell me that you're working on at the moment?
Well, I can tell you in the next couple of weeks, we'll have an Arabic large language model. It's a follow-up to something we call JACE that we launched last year. This is a new version that we think, when it's available, will be the best Arabic large language model in the world. I think Arabic is an area that has been underserved. So having Arabic large language models that understand, the different context and dialects, because there's so many different dialects of Arabic, and all the cultural contexts around recipes, dream interpretation, finance. The Arabic world approaches things a little bit different, and they have not had AI models that have really served them. So we have the intent to bring one to market that we think is going to be the best one to use and the best one for the Arabic world overall. And we're going to really be very aggressive with bringing that out. I think there's going to be this model K2 Think I talked about. We're going to do an update to that. That'll be a full sovereign AI model for the UAE to build on. So we're excited about that. The world model I just told you about, we're going to have the public app available for that in the not too distant future. I don't want to say a specific date because the team's working hard on that, but that means anybody will be able to log on and go to the web and try it. And I think by trying it is really the best way you're going to see the outcome. But that's just a snapshot of what was coming. We have a whole bunch of things happening in robotics and some other areas that I can't mention, but the amount of activity has been frenetic. And I will tell you, it's not going to get any slower next year. It's going to be even faster.
It really is a watch this space. You mentioned something there in amongst all the usual stuff, finance, etc., that you think Arabic has been underserved, and I can absolutely see that and would agree with you. But you mentioned dream interpretation there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's our AI model for Arabic. It looks at different ways you can interpret dreams. Arabic poetry. I mean, really looking at things that are very specific and localized that are in Arabic culture have a different interpretation. We've made an extraordinary effort to train the model so it can be really proficient in these areas. Because the models are great in their core form, but how you fine tune them for a particular use is really where they get special. And for us with Arabic, we really did feel strongly that we want to be able the ones to here to set the standard for that going forward. So there's an opportunity. So our Arabic large language model, when it's available, you'll be able to download that and try the chat experiences on your phone, on your PC, or your Mac, or whatever you'd like, and really experience that firsthand and see it firsthand. But then we're also going to bring that to other languages as well. We've done work locally in Hindu and Kazakh. The one thing we have a special lens here is to different parts of the world that are in close proximity that we do a lot of work with. Where I think sometimes in the West, there's just really predominantly a focus on English, Western US dialogue, and that's really where it ends. We see an opportunity to go much further than that.
Well, I figure that's a really important thing to consider, actually, if you're particularly if you're here in the region. But it strikes me that you can be, Mr. Spock, logical as much as you like, but there are cultural sensibilities that you need to be mindful of.
Yes, 100%. And you have to train the model, and even around the safeguards you put in place. As you so appropriately acknowledge, there's different sensitivities in different parts of the world, and you want the models to reflect that. So what I might think is the way that I'd want to handle and engage in a chat experience in the US is very different than how I'd want to do it here versus doing it in Morocco or Egypt or Kazakhstan or somewhere else. We need models that are ultimately made from that accessibility perspective. And if you think it's speaking to you in a term and in a vernacular that's very familiar, you're more inclined to use it. And I think that's really what it comes down to versus feeling like you have to adapt who you are to be able to take advantage of this technology.
Final question for you, Jon. You pointed towards students a few minutes ago, staying in the UAE. For students or professionals as well, to be fair, interested in this field, what kinds of core skills are going to be essential for the next generation of predictive AI experts?
Wow, there's definitely I could go a long way on this one, but I think you don't the days of you having to be a mathematician or a wizard on that. Not that that's not important. Having a good grounding in the principles of mathematics is always important, but the technology is being able to do more of that work for you. So I think it comes down to number one, your aptitude to be able to pick up the technology, and it's something we call prompt engineering is a big deal now. How do you actually engage and tell the AI to give instructions for it to do the things you want it to do? So I think we've all had experiences on AI where we've asked it to do something or asked ChatGPT for something and it hasn't quite got the meaning of what we were asking. It's how you actually prompt the system or technology to work. So that's a big deal, getting really strong expertise at how we prompt engineer and doing that in a way that more people can take advantage of this technology. Obviously, an interest in math and science never hurts, especially if you want to come solve some of the bigger problems that are out there. Reasoning is a huge category for us, and that's an area that AI now is kind of your math and science tutor that takes that journey with you in your exploration. I would say though also too, just from a cultural perspective, coming in with a little bit more of that understanding of the different ways that we actually use technology in the world around you. So you're building things for accessibility because there are still billions of people out there that are not fully taking advantage of AI because they don't have something that's viable for them. So coming in, I think, if especially for Mohammed bin Zayed University, is you'd want to have an international orientation because you have such an opportunity to kind of go global with that. But the skills are becoming broader. I mean, if you look at even our undergrad program for AI, I mean, we do everything from even training them how to operate a startup because so many of our students coming in are teenagers now that have startups. If I look at what I was doing in high school compared to these kids when they get here, I feel woefully inadequate because in some cases, one or two startups, incredible work they're doing. And you're just blown away by the proficiency they have, and it's helping them to understand the business world of how to set up and operate one because the ideation's already there, and the motivation's already there. So that kind of stuff for me, it gets me excited to come to work every day, but it also reminds me that this generation is moving at a different speed.
Absolutely is. It's interesting you say what you say there, because it seems as though the tech world, the scientific tech world that we're all, or many of us, are slightly scared of. It's a little bit at arm's length. It's kind
Yeah,
of being blurred with AI now. We're starting
yeah,
to see a much more, what's the right way of phrasing it? It's a much more human aspect. This is for us to use for the betterment of us, kind of thing.
yep, absolutely. That's absolutely true.
Do you know what? It's fascinating. It really is. Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence has unveiled PAN. It's a world model AI. It's capable of remembering past events, predicting future states, and responding to multi-step instructions with human-like consistency. Love it. Jon Carvill is the VP of Marketing Communications at MBZ, or Z if you prefer, UAI. Jon, I've loved talking to you. Thank you for joining us here at Mira
Likewise.
Business.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it.